Hi there, I'm Amanda Castor with Material Girl Quilts. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Jolly Holiday Wreath Quilt. Now this quilt is a perfect wreath that you can make and hang in your with your holiday decor, and it's a perfect scrap project. So if you want to pull out all of the greens from your scraps and mix them together to put together for this quilt, that would be great. Or because the squares in this quilt that we cut are 2.5 inches square, so you could also use some charm squares that you cut up and use for this quilt. I actually had a couple of charm packs that I used and pulled the greens and the reds from those to create this quilt, and then used the extras on the back, just a fun little pieced back for this. But anyway, it's a great holiday quilt, and I think that you'll enjoy it, and it comes together really quickly, so there's plenty of time for you to get this done before Christmas. And as a reminder, if you'd like a PDF pattern for this quilt, you can join Material Girl Society. You go onto my website, materialgirlquilts.com, and click on the membership link at the top menu, and you'll find out more information. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to have to do to make our wreath is we're going to have to create some half square triangles. So you will select one of your green and one of your background 3-inch squares, place them right sides together, and then you will sew 1/4 inch on either side of this diagonal line. So you can draw a line down the middle, or you can use 1/4 inch seam tape like I do on my machine. And once you sew on either side of that diagonal line, you will then cut directly on the diagonal to create 2 half square triangles. And once these are pressed, you will then trim them to measure 2.5 inches square. And you will need a total of 20 of the green with the background fabric half square triangles, and 4 with the red and green, and then 2 with red and the background color. So you will create all of those half square triangles and trim them up to measure 2.5 inches square. Then the next thing we're going to do is from the center of the wreath. So you will take your large background square and select 4 different 2.5 inch green squares for the wreath fabric. And what you will do is on each of the corners, you will place them right sides together, and you are going to sew directly on that diagonal line across the center of your square. And once you do that, you will then trim the excess off. Give yourself 1/4 inch seam and trim this off, and then you will press towards the triangle. So you will repeat for all 4 corners of your background square. Okay, here's what your center block will look like once it's all trimmed and pressed. Now we can put all of the pieces together. So you will lay out all of your cut squares, your green wreath squares, your red bow squares, and all of the background pieces as shown in this diagram. And then you will sew those pieces into rows, and then sew the rows together to complete the center of your quilt top. Now I highly recommend that you sew like the first 4 rows together as shown here in one section. You'll have that completed, and then for the center section, you already have your center block. So you will then sew the sides of this center section together into rows. So you'll have 2 side sections for the center, and then 4 more rows for the bottom of your quilt top. And I know it won't all fit here, but that gives you an idea of how then to get this entire quilt sewn together. You will sew the 4 rows at the top. This center section will be in 3 different sections. You'll have rows on each side, and then 1 center block, and then your final 4 rows at the bottom. And then once you sew this center block together with these 2 sections, you can then sew all 3 of these sections together to complete the center of your quilt top. Then once we have that completed, we are going to add a border that finishes at 2 inches so that the entire quilt top will finish at 28 inches square. Now, as you can see, this really is a quick finish. It's easy to make, and it's going to be the perfect addition to your holiday decor. If you make your own, I would love to see it. Please tag me on social media and use the hashtag Jolly Holiday Wreath Quilt. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you click the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any tutorials going forward. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.